The holiest of all the spots on earth is where an ancient hatred has become a present love. A Course in Miracles. Hello and welcome to episode 7 of When We Are Healed. Here in the US, we have a big election coming up, and the polarizing energy around it has been quite intense. We live in an age where the media promotes and feeds off of binary thinking and the narrative of us versus them. When we are caught up in this mindset, it can really feel like there is a group of people out there working against us, trying to take things away from us, threatening our safety, and ruining the whole world. And we feel so justified in condemning them, calling them names, even trying to crush and eliminate them. And this mindset, enemy consciousness, is the basis for all the wars, violence, and conflict we see playing out in the world. The cycle of attack and retaliation seems endless. And it can feel very overwhelming to even think about how on earth can we begin to heal this divide before we end up destroying each other and the planet. But what if there really is a way? You have probably heard of the saying, there is no world peace until you have inner peace. If we want to end wars, we have to start by shifting our own thought system from fear to love, from separation to oneness, from enemy consciousness to unity consciousness. And as a longtime spiritual student and someone who's joined many marches and vigils for peace, I used to think this whole business of war and violence was happening somewhere out there. I was lamenting the state of the world, wishing that haters would stop hating on each other, wishing that politicians and big corporations would stop funding and waging wars, wishing that other people would be more loving and understanding towards each other. I had no idea I was also being caught up in enemy consciousness, believing that those people were the problem and that my world would be so much better off without them. Enemy consciousness is very sneaky and pervasive. And there's a saying, if you see it, you've got it, which really humbles me because it means that whatever we see out there in the world is reflecting back to us what is inside of us. So if we're seeing war and violence and conflict, the invitation is to look within. What is this showing me that's actually in me? Where am I in conflict? Who am I seeing as an enemy? Where am I trying to manipulate and change others, which really is a subtle form of violence? And as I became more willing to look within, I started to see all the seemingly harmless ways I was at war in my day-to-day life. I started to notice that there were all these judgments about someone popping up left and right all day long. And it was being triggered by things big and small. Sometimes it was something hurtful that someone that I love said to me years ago that suddenly popped up in my mind. Sometimes it was a political figure I saw online. Sometimes it was the person who bumped into me on an elevator and didn't apologize. Or sometimes it was my husband forgetting to do the dishes or something like that. You get what I mean, right? The word judgment or attack thought might sound pretty dramatic, but really it's any sense of wanting them to be different than they are, saying that they're not worthy or lovable as they are, blaming them for my unhappiness, or more subtly, believing that I'm right and they're wrong, or that I'm superior or inferior to them in any way. So all this is to say that the ego mind, the voice of fear in us, is constantly judging and attacking others, wondering if they're safe to be around, wondering what kind of threat they could potentially bring. And a war is just an extreme manifestation or extension of that. And all of this arises from our collective belief in separation. The only cause of suffering in all of my relationships, the only thing that stands in the way of me loving anyone unconditionally, is the belief that they are separate from me. And A Course in Miracles says that this is the only thing that ever needs to be healed. Which makes sense because we are one. So whatever judgment or grievance that we're holding against someone, we're actually holding it against ourselves. And it hurts. If you've ever noticed how you feel in your body when you are entertaining attack thoughts in your mind, it doesn't feel good, right? As the saying goes, holding a grudge is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Very dark. Or when you point a finger at someone, there are 3 more fingers pointing back at yourself. So unless we let go of these attack thoughts and negative feelings we have about others, they start to pop up in our lives to get our attention as difficult relationships, maybe depression or anxiety, or even accidents and illnesses. So again, anytime we attack anyone in our mind, we are the ones who suffer. But how do we even begin to love our enemies, especially when they appear to be attacking us? My answer is that we can't love our enemies, but if we stop seeing them as our enemies, then love can naturally flow. When it comes to how we experience life, perception is everything. It's never the situation or the person's action that determines or causes our suffering. It really is how we interpret them. So for me, when I realized that I want to help end all wars, I had to make a decision and commitment to love everyone no matter what. The decision to leave no one out of my heart and make no exceptions. I decided to take at face value what A Course in Miracles was saying was the truth with a capital T, which is, we are all eternal spirit. There's only one life, and every part of it is innocent and sacred. Love is our true nature, and all of us are one, inseparable from one another. And since we are one, conflict and attack are actually not possible. But we happen to be so powerful that we can dream up a whole world in which we can forget the truth and experience separation and attack. And that is the world that we are seeing. And we are here to wake up from that dream of separation by choosing to love one another unconditionally. But everything I just said, the concept of oneness, can be really challenging for our thinking mind to wrap its head around, right? It would immediately start arguing with it, like, what do you mean everyone's innocent? What about that person and this person who committed that horrendous crime, right? So here's one way I like to describe it. Life is like a play where you are the main character, and every single person that shows up in your life is being played by your beloved soul brothers and sisters. Someone might be playing the role of a villain, seemingly attacking you and making life very difficult for you, but that is not who they really are. In truth, they are just as near and dear to your heart as the one playing your partner or children. In the play, there are dangers and sicknesses and deaths and all kinds of terrible things that can happen. But in truth, they're just props, plot devices, stories. The eternal spirit that we are cannot be hurt or diminished in any way by what happens in the play. But to make this play really interesting, we enter it purposefully forgetting all of this. We become very absorbed in the play, completely identifying with the characters we're playing, and experiencing all the ups and downs of the human life, and it all feels very real. And the challenge, the name of the game, is to remember who we really are and to choose love even when the situations tempt us to stay in fear and attack. So once again, in order to choose love, in order to choose to love someone unconditionally, we must be willing to let go of all the judgments, grievances, and attack thoughts that are blocking us from remembering who they really are. A Course in Miracles calls this forgiveness. And this is a practice, along with the practice of self-love, that has been really transformational for me. And there are several different ways I practice forgiveness throughout the day, but I'll share two of the big ones today. And the first one is whenever I am with someone or walk past them on the street or see them on the screen or even just think about them, I do my best to remember that they are actually eternal spirit, my soul brother or sister, even if they don't know it. And I watch my mind for any and all judgments and attack thoughts as they pop up, and I give it over to my higher self, or just let them go without engaging with it or identifying with it. And then I like to give that person a silent blessing. I say to them in my mind, "You are innocent," or "You are limitless," "You are spirit," "You are love," "You are holy," "You are free." Sometimes I also imagine holding a magic wand and sprinkling fairy dust on them, or beaming rainbows at them, or enveloping them in a ball of golden light. I have fun with different imagery. And the second one is when someone presses my button and I feel upset. I pause and take a breath as soon as I am aware enough to do so. And I remember that A, it's not their action or words that's hurting me, but the meaning I'm making of them. And B, that this is an opportunity for me to choose love and healing. So I focus on the sensations in my body, let myself feel what I'm feeling, and I ask my higher self for help. This is often enough to keep me from letting a knee-jerk reaction take over. And sometimes I can see the story that's upsetting me right there and then and let it go very quickly. But oftentimes the triggered emotion takes a while longer to move through, so I need to go give myself some space if I can. And I find it really helpful to open up my journal and write down the thoughts I'm having, the judgments, give it voice, be completely unspiritual about it. Just write down honestly what's going through my mind, what meaning I'm making of what this person said or did. And that helps me see these judgments and thoughts for what they are, right? Just stories, it's not truth. One of my favorite spiritual teachers is Byron Katie. And as some of you may know, she has a wonderful method of inquiry that she calls the work. where she has you take each painful thought or judgment that you've written down and ask yourself a set of questions about them. And I found her method to be extremely helpful in looking at and releasing those particularly gnarly attack thoughts. And the entire method is available on her website for free at thework.com. I'll put that in the show notes. And I also love all of her books. And if you are new to her work, I would recommend starting with Loving What Is. I'll put a link to the book in the show notes as well. And there are a couple of points I'd like to emphasize about forgiveness. And the first is that it is a way of setting yourself free. Instead of seeing yourself as a helpless victim of your life circumstances, you're taking back the power to see it differently and release yourself in the now moment from all the painful stories that you have been telling yourself. And the second is what I talked about in episode 4, and also what my friend Rosalind Rourke and I were speaking to in episode 6, about the fact that these thoughts and feelings, the judgments, the grievances, the attack thoughts that you will notice zipping through your mind throughout the day, it's not who you are. It's not who you are. It's just energy passing through. So when you first start doing this practice, the mind might hijack this process and say, oh my God, look at all these judgments I'm having. Look how I'm attacking everybody. I'm such a terrible person, etc. Right? So don't let that voice guilt trip you. It is just what the split ego mind does. It's just what it does. So with compassion and patience, continue to just let it go every time you notice. That's what I've been doing. And I found these forgiveness practices to be really, really powerful and also very practical. Just to share a few of the shifts that I personally experienced. One is I can notice when there is temptation to participate in gossip or othering, talking about someone as an other, talking about a group of people as an other. I notice those more easily, and I'm able to just opt out of that instead of participating. If I encounter a person who seems to be a little mentally disturbed on the street, which happens a lot in New York City and here in Portland as well, I feel less fear around them because I can switch quickly to the mindset of, oh, here's my brother who is going through life in this way, experiencing life in this way. And I'm here to hold a space of unconditional love for him. And any social situations have become much more enjoyable because I know that no matter where I go, I'm surrounded by my soul brothers and sisters who are one with me. You know, sometimes I slip out of that awareness and forget about that, I'll be honest. But for the most part, I'm able to enjoy myself in the company of others so much more than I used to. And that includes having conversations around divisive topics like politics with friends and family, because my heart and my mind are more open and I'm more able to move to a place of curiosity and appreciation towards their different worldviews and opinions and experiences. And I feel less of a need to prove my point, less of a need to be right, and focus more on loving them, focus more on what we have in common, our shared interests. Because in the end, everyone wants the same thing, right? Regardless of what they believe. We all want to be safe. We all want to be seen and heard and loved. We all want to be healthy. We all care about the environment. We all want peace. This is all what we have in common. And so walking through life has become much more enjoyable in general because I see more and more people as friends rather than enemies. When you practice forgiveness, it awakens unity consciousness, the awareness of oneness, a sense of loving connection to and deep appreciation of everything and everyone. And when you choose love instead of fear, it raises your vibration and puts you in a higher consciousness, higher timeline where greater possibilities and solutions become available. And on top of that, you're helping to heal the collective consciousness because we are one. Your forgiveness literally changes the world. It has ripple effects throughout the entire universe of time and space. And I've come across so many beautiful, inspiring stories of forgiveness over the years that just brings tears to my eyes just thinking about them. One of them is a story of a woman named Mary Johnson who adopted the man who killed her own son, or another woman named Debbie Bakery who forgave the boy who attempted to rob her and shot her in the mouth, and she helped get him out of prison and basically took him in as her own son. I mean, I can't really talk about any of this without breaking down into tears, but I so would love to see more of these stories in the news rather than all the stuff of doom and gloom that we tend to see, because I know these stories are happening all over the world, and it might seem small or big, but all of them are equally beautiful and so powerful. Forgiveness heals, and forgiveness saves the world. And here's the other thing. Back in August 2017, during the total solar eclipse, I was meditating and received this unforgettable vision of hundreds of thousands of soldiers on a battlefield about to engage in battle, and then dropping their weapons and stepping towards one another and hugging their enemies in tears of joy and relief. And I continued to hold this vision in my heart, knowing that this is where we're headed, no matter how intense things might get leading up to that. All the divide and polarization we're seeing today is an invitation to flex our love and forgiveness muscles like never before. Because when we realize that we are all just the same beautiful spirit masquerading in different bodies and perspectives, we can never dehumanize anyone or call them another. This is how we end wars, and this is how we heal. And as one of my favorite quote from A Course in Miracles says, the holiest of all the spots on earth is where an ancient hatred has become a present love. So I'll leave you with a short meditation on forgiveness today. Join me in closing your eyes if it's safe to do so. And just shifting your awareness to the sensation of your breath, moving in and out of your body, feeling where your feet are, feel the floor beneath you. If you're sitting in a chair, feel the support of your seat beneath you. And just coming into this present moment just for a while. And I invite you to call to mind one person who's been pressing your button in some way. Anyone who you've been experiencing stress around. And I invite you to send them love in whatever way that feels right for you. And if you're feeling resistance, if that feels like something that you genuinely don't want to do right now, that is perfectly okay. Would you be willing to send them a ball of golden light, just using your imagination? And just watch them being enveloped in that light, in that love that you sent, that you were willing to give them as a blessing. And just notice how that feels in your mind. And if any attack thoughts or stories come up about them, see if you'd be willing to just let those pass. And maybe those thoughts can be also absorbed and dissipated in that beautiful light as well. And this is no small thing. Your willingness to see this person differently, even a little bit, your willingness to send them love instead of attack thoughts, even for one moment, creates that opening for miracles to unfold. And I really mean this because I've experienced this many, many times. And so letting go of any expectations about the outcome, but just know that this is an invitation. This is the beginning of a new relationship with that person. And you can leave all the rest to the universe, to the divine, to a higher loving power. And so I give you thanks for being willing to do this with me today, for tuning in. And I send you prayers of blessing, prayers of freedom, liberation, healing. I am grateful to be walking this path with you. I share this prayer with all because for one, grateful that forgiveness sets all of us free. And so I let it be. I accept it. I say yes to it. And so it is. If you enjoyed this episode, I invite you to come check out our Substack at whenwearehealed.com, where you can subscribe to keep in touch and get show notes emailed to you. Sending you lots of love, and I'll see you in the next episode.